listening to The Tide Pod, hosted by your friendly neighborhood PhD. Okay, well, hi everyone. It's another episode of The Tide Pod. And today I am honored to be joined by Shamekka, and she's going to talk a little bit about her experience as a speaker and advocate, and then a little bit about her journey with lupus. And then you've also been a caregiver, I understand, with some family as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm happy to have you. Thanks so much for joining.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, definitely. But just starting out, I would like if you could just give a brief sort of summary of like the journey that you've been on and kind of what, where that's led you to today and what you're involved with.
Sure. So my journey started when I was a child, and my mother was a single mother. Her mother was a single mother. And I know that when I was born, my grandmother started to deteriorate. She had rheumatoid arthritis and it became extremely severe. She couldn't do things on her own. So my mom decided to take her in. And I remember I was about 4 years old, and my mom had just um, started to deteriorate herself. And she just gave birth to my little brother. So she was still married, but then a couple of years later, my parents divorced, and that really took a toll on her. So it was her taking care of her mother, and I had to step in. So by the time I was 10, I was taking care of everything. It was the four of us. Sometimes there were other family members that moved in to help out for a short period of time, but never anything consistent, even with Medicare and Medicaid. The resources, they start off with 100% and then they slowly dwindle away.
Mhm.
So to fill in those gaps, we have to do that. My mom was trying to figure out what her diagnosis was at the time. And back in the 90s, no one knew anything about lupus.
Mhm.
Um, so it became a struggle, like, okay, who do I help take care of? And it became known that she had lupus, and it escalated into she needs a kidney. My mother received a kidney transplant, and again, it escalated to me being 14 and learning how to drive real quick. So it was like, okay, you need to kick it in the high gear. My regular days were coming home, cooking 3 different meals, one for a cardiac diet because my grandmother had a lot of cardiac issues, a
Mhm.
kidney diet. So my mom could only have chicken and turkey and liver. And then me and my brother was like, well, if I don't feel like cooking today, we're going to have cereal.
Right.
Talking to the nurses when they were there, she had in-home dialysis, hemodialysis at that, and learning a lot, going to the doctor's offices, taking down notes, trying to understand what all these clinicians are saying to me, going to the library, trying to research, trying to help my mother. And when I just thought that things couldn't be tough enough, I just said, why don't I just have a baby too? So I became a teen mom.
Mhm.
So I just had everything going for
Layers
me.
of living. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, it's not hard enough. Let's make it harder. I like a challenge.
Right.
So I ended up graduating, but my mom received a kidney transplant. She was good for a little bit. She lasted for 7 years before
Mhm.
she passed away. And right before she passed away, she knew that her kidney was rejecting. So she put my Nana in a nursing facility. So she was there, but then my mom passed away. And by that time, I had 2 kids by the time I was 19. And from there, it was again growing up really fast, planning a funeral. Then I got married. And from then on, it was okay, let's take care of my grandmother. And then she passed away. And I said, I need to do something for them. These strong women taught me so much. I started advocating in my mom and grandmother's name, doing walks, talking about my experience, and just learning from what I went through to help others. And then all of a sudden I said, you know what, let me be proactive. I kept asking the doctor, researching all the time. I was like, there's a test. There is no specific test really back then for lupus. But I was like, you guys need to test me. So if something pops up, I want to be in front of it. And they kept saying, there's nothing, there's nothing. Every year we keep testing you. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to manifest it? I'm like, I'm not. I just don't want to be caught off guard. So I had a series of issues between 5 to 7 years. It took a diagnosis where one thing would happen and we couldn't find out who the arsonist was. It was,
Mhm.
okay, we put out a fire here, we put out a fire here. And finally, everything came together because no one was looking at it at a whole aerial view of she's having this, this, and this. They were just like, she has this, calms down for a little bit. She has this, calms down for a little bit. Lo
So
and
just
behold, the
focusing
art.
like on each little issue, like
Yeah,
specifically, and not really looking at the whole picture. Yeah.
exactly. Looking at the whole picture would have condensed the time that it took for me to get a diagnosis. And fast forwarding to, I finally get a diagnosis. I'm finally validated in all the symptoms that I'm experiencing. And I said, okay, I had a pity party for about 5 minutes. And I called my husband and I was like, I'm going to own this. My mom did not make me go through all of this training, what I call boot camp, for nothing.
That's,
And it's
yeah.
going to be try me. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to kick up my advocacy into more, into learning more, engulfing myself. How can I help the patient experience? And I've done so many conferences, so many podcasts, helping people. The things that I learned, I try to put out on my social media, like, hey, you should ask the doctor this, you should do this, tips and tricks to help other people so that I don't feel alone, how I saw my mother do it. And so now here I am, 45 years old. I've been advocating for 20 years. My mother's been gone for 23 years now. And it's been a long journey. I've had a kidney transplant 2 years ago. I died in the process of getting the kidney transplant. I had a mini stroke. I've had a full hysterectomy. I've had so many things that have tried to kill me, but I'm here today. And that's why I'm speaking with all of you.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, you're carrying on, like the legacy too of like your mom and grandmother and what they went through. And, obviously the healthcare, the diagnosis and treatment, and everything is definitely, better, it sounds like, than where it was, but there's still obviously room to grow, and then you're talking about self-advocacy too, which I think is so big, that you kept going to the doctors and being, kind of, persistent in that way, because I feel like what you said, if they only look at one thing at a time and don't really, it's not like you have a team that's assembled together and that's always communicating and sharing, it's really a challenging situation, but that I definitely, look up to you and so many of the, chronic illness disability community before. So, I just, it's, it's never going to get easy, obviously, but you've taken, I mean, I think if you take the high road like that and keep fighting, like that's the only way to really do it, in my opinion. So
Yeah, you can either let it take your power away, or you take your power into your own hands. And I take my pain and make it my power.
right. And I mean, you mentioned it being like a boot camp, starting from when you were younger. What was that like to be, I guess, forced into like, caregiver role at that age? Like what was it like? Do you feel like it, right away just kind of made you stronger, to move forward?
Well, certainly, when I think back when I was in the caregiver role at such a young age, the first thing as a kid, you think, why are you doing this to me? I just want to be a normal child. I knew immediately my house was not normal, not just because of the sick people that are there, because everybody else was used to locking their doors and I was used to unlocking my doors. And it was weird when I heard everybody say, make sure you lock the door behind you. And I'm like, well, at my house, we don't do that. Are you crazy? You want everything to get stolen? And I'm like, are you crazy? Do you want the EMTs to bash the window in to get my grandmother who is incapacitated and bedridden? Because we don't have the money to replace a door or a
Right.
window. She has life alert and she's hit it several times. And that one time we got that bill, I got chewed out. So my household is not like your household. So I felt different. And I just felt like I didn't even have a choice at that time. Now, me being older and knowing my purpose, and I feel as though that was the reason why I was in boot camp, was because I know my purpose is to help people. It was like, I was just being very immature, not thinking about the bigger picture. But then again, you can't expect someone that young to think about it like that. Of course, I was going to be mean. And I was one time I lashed out and I was like, why are you putting all this pressure on me? And I remember when she passed away, I was like, I wish I never would have said that. And
Right.
everyone tells me like, you didn't know. And I said, I know now. And I don't feel right about it. But again, I have to remember I was a child.
Right.
So it's in two different perspectives. In the whole grand scheme of things, it worked out. I know my purpose, and that's the reason why. But it's very hard as a child for any situation, whether you're taking care of people or you have a lot of responsibility that maybe you have to help out and work. Because I had to do that too, where you're just
Right.
like, can I go ride my bike? And then just go
and
ride
like
my
hang out
bike.
with your friends and
Yeah.
do some more. Yeah, that's
I would rebel and do that, and then I'd get in trouble, because you weren't home, this happened, and I was like, "Oh my God, why do
just
I
the
have to
weight of
do
that
it?"
responsibility had to be so much there early on. So like, yeah, and not to mention, like I think about my parents, I'm with my muscular dystrophy, I'm, getting care for almost everything these days. And just the time and understanding of all the different steps of the healthcare needs, like it's a full-time job by itself, much less, trying to like do another job on top of that, or even like you mentioned with meal prep and cooking. That's actually something I wanted to ask you about too. Like you had those dietary needs of different people. Like how did you manage that? Is there like a strategy now that you kind of look back on and think could have worked? Like how did you kind of organize that at the time?
Back then, they weren't really giving a lot of nutrition tips,
Mhm.
and even to this day, you would think that with all the information out there, if you aren't looking for it yourself, they're not really giving you a great guide. So I'll take you back to when I was a child. My mother just said, "Nana can have chicken, turkey, or fish, and a little bit of this, no soda, no sugar." She just gave me a list of things that she really could have. So we stayed within that realm. So I knew that half the time she'd be sick of turkey all the time. Then I would change it up and like 1 week turkey, 1 week chicken. It was very boring. And I would just make it look like I was feeding a dog or something, because I'd
Mhm.
have to break everything up into little pieces. It wasn't just I made it, I had to break it up in pieces. And because her hands were very arthritic, they were overlapping. We put two forks together,
Mhm.
taped them with medical tape so it could be long enough, because her hands were like right here. So she could
Mhm.
try to feed herself and I wouldn't have to do it. So that was that. Then my mom would be like, "I want okra and liver and onions and all the stuff that smelled weird." And it wasn't really like, oh, I came up with a cookbook. Back then, it was
Yeah,
just cookbooks. Now I'll stay up all night scrolling through Instagram, looking
just
at cooking
planning
stuff.
through. Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, oh, I'll try that. Oh, I'll try that. Like today, I was thinking about, okay, well, I have this and this. I'll make this. And so I'm like, okay.
yeah,
Right now, when it became my brother and I, we were just, okay, we're gonna have cereal. Okay, we're gonna make this steak. And when my husband first met me, he's like, "How come you don't know how to cook steak? You cook all the time." And I was like, "Well, nobody really ever taught me. So I just fry the heck out of it."
just on the
And he
go.
was like,
Yeah,
yeah, I was
yeah,
just like, I just put some water in there and fry the heck out of it. Now I'm a chef. But he was like, "No, that's not what you do." And nobody. So when I got my kidney, they gave me
Mhm.
this big pamphlet and they were like, "Here's what you should eat." And I looked at it and I'm like, "So you're saying I should just have air? Because I can't have this and I can't have this and I can't have this. I can't have this, can't have this, can't have this. But if you
Yeah,
eat
yeah.
this, then this will happen and then you'll have a drug interaction." I was just like,
Oh my
they should
gosh.
do better. They should really do better. I was like, I'm just gonna have this air. I'm
Yeah,
full.
that's going to be sufficient for a long time. Yeah. Oh wow. Well, that's so annoying. I find too. When it seems like you get advice or get these pamphlets of information. And you have to just like sift through and almost trial and error figure out what works. It sounds like. So what is that like now? You feel like with the kidney and everything, are you able to kind of have the variety that you want and be able to try new
Yeah.
things, or is it kind of a rigid, really strict process?
I know that if they had their way, I would have this strict process. And like I said, I would just have like nuts, water,
Right.
and some organic stuff that probably comes from the Himalayas. Like I'm being extreme, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I tell people, look, there's so many things that come out and they say, "Oh, eat this now, don't eat this."
Mhm.
That honestly, you should just stay away from the really toxic stuff. Like, don't eat Takis every day. Don't eat
Yeah.
Doritos every day. Eat everything in moderation and be healthy and
Mhm.
keep it like that. I don't eat a lot of many things. And when I do eat, I eat a very small portion. And you know what to keep away from. Don't drink yourself to death. Don't like have an abundance of soda. All those things you should know is proper nutrition. But
Right.
for me, I just say, and it works for me. I have to say this preface this,
True.
works for
That's
me.
true.
Everything in moderation and be smart about it. You
Mhm.
already know you cannot have fried foods every day.
Right.
Okay, that's not part of the four food groups here. And I also know, because I have really bad acid reflux, I have to be very careful anytime I have a lot of red sauce. There's certain things that I'm like, do I want to chance this? I know what's going to happen to my body.
Right. Right. Yeah. And a lot of it's probably experience too. It seems like it's funny. I developed kind of a strange allergy to food dyes and artificial colors just out of the blue in my late 20s, and all of a sudden I would be having like hives and like major digestive problems. And so I didn't know what it was for the longest time, and then I was like, oh, it's these processed, things with artificial ingredients that, obviously, like I think so many of us are probably wanting to stay away from anyway. But yeah, like that's kind of been my experience too. Like you have to go through and figure out what the diet is that works, and moderation is often the way to go. It seems like these days. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Um, I want to go into like the diagnosis thing too. So your grandmother, she had lupus and RA, or she just had RA was the primary?
I honestly want to say that she did, because a
Uh-huh.
lot of the symptoms that she had mimicked what my mother had. She just had a very severe form. So all I knew is that she had vasculitis and rheumatoid arthritis, but she had it so severe that her hands were frozen in place, as well as her legs. And she had a triple
Mhm.
bypass and a mechanical valve in her heart, which it worked up until the time they said it would. They were like, it's going to last 20 years. And as soon as that 20th year hit, she passed.
And that,
So,
wow, that was accurate then.
yeah, because she started to have problems, and she was like, they told me 20 years, and I didn't think that it was really going to be to the T. And she started to deteriorate like literally right after. It took 2 months. And they said that she was too fragile to operate on. So I'm not sure, because lupus was almost like HIV back then. Nobody knew anything about it. And
Mhm,
this was the late 90s.
mhm,
People still to this day are still asking me when I say I have lupus, what is that?
mhm,
I heard someone that has it. Doesn't that singer have it? Well, what
mhm.
does it mean? Nobody knows what it means.
Right. They kind of have this sort of general assumption of they've heard that somebody has it, and that's all they really know then. So
Yeah.
you kind of, do you feel like as you experienced or saw what your grandmother and mother went through with diagnosis, and then you yourself, like how has that advanced? You mentioned several tests that they were doing, but do you feel like it is a more clear thing that can be diagnosed now, or is it still
Um,
difficult?
I think that right now it's easier to diagnose with the tests that are available, with doing a rheumatic panel. And I
Mhm,
recommend people, when they start having issues, I'm like, ask them, because they don't typically do that in a regular CBC or a metabolic panel. So those are the two things that whenever your doctor does a physical for you and runs your blood work, he usually runs a CBC or a metabolic panel. A CBC is
mhm,
going to tell you, are you anemic, what your sugars are, what your potassium levels are, just the
mhm,
basics. But if you start having things go haywire, you have to ask them, hey, can you test me for some autoimmune diseases? And that's called a full rheumatic panel. And it will come up with a positive ANA if there's any autoimmune diseases detected. Now, there is a test that just came out. I think it was from Ample, the pharmaceutical company,
mhm.
that can directly test for lupus. I think that more advancement in technology and science has the ability to cut down the diagnosis time, but we're still behind, because now we have AI that can encompass so much if we put all of our electronic medical records all together. And it
Mhm.
should be able to help clinicians to navigate through the issues that you're experiencing and get a better view. Not exactly happening, but that's what we're going towards.
Right, right. Well, I mean, it's little incremental improvements. It sounds like along the way. So, what are some of the early signs you feel like that that happen maybe where you should go ahead and consider getting tested?
Things that you should get tested for, especially with kidney involvement. A lot of
Mhm,
people don't know, like when I told them my sleep pattern's off, and they're like, well, how do the kidneys have anything to do with your sleep pattern? Well, it does. If you have an erratic sleep pattern, and that could be a multitude of issues, honestly. And for the most part, that is an indication of some autoimmune diseases, and also with issues with your kidneys. Also, when I first got diagnosed, one of the major symptoms that I experienced was I felt like I had the flu all the time. Like, okay, I'm taking cold medicine, it's not going away. My lymph nodes were severely enlarged,
mhm,
and I was just hunched over. I just felt like a cloud was over me. And then also I experienced a lot of muscle pain in my hands. My hands kept getting very tight and it was just like this. And I'm like, what is going on? I felt like my husband was beating me in my sleep and I didn't know what was going on. My back was killing me. And they kept saying, oh, you have allergies. And I'm like, I don't just out of nowhere at 30 get allergies. What are you talking about?
And that
Well, you
persistently
had,
too.
yeah. And I said, okay. So I took the allergy medicine. It went away for like 2 days and it came back and they're like, take it again. You have to keep taking it. I'm like, okay. I kept taking it, but it still was taking my swollen lymph nodes down a little bit, but not enough. And I told my girlfriend who was a nurse, I said, if you can, steal some prednisone for me, because I remember my mom used to take that. And she's like, okay. I said, I just want to test something because they're not listening to me. So give me the prednisone. And I know if it works, then it is indeed lupus now. And I took it and all my stuff went away. Of course, prednisone, steroid, it loosens up everything. So be on the lookout when you have a lot of severe systemic pain, joint pain, lymph nodes. If you feel like you're icky, like just blah. If your feet swell, my feet were swelling a lot, on and off, not like how it was when I was needing a kidney, but it was just swollen just a little bit. I kept getting hot flashes, and I said, I'm too young to have menopause. What is going on? And they kept saying, well, maybe it's early menopause. I was like, well, that can happen. I didn't even have a period until I was 16. Most girls have it when they're like 12. So I would think I'd be far, far, far out there that I could continue to have kids for a while. So I would go places and you know how you get a little bit hot? I would get hot and then it would just shoot up from like 80 degrees to 110 and I would just burst out in sweat. So my body kept freaking out. If you're profusely sweating and you're young, there's, you keep getting blood work and something's wrong, but they can't tell what's wrong. And I had severe brain fog. I'm usually very, very keen on a lot of details, better than most, where I can just memorize. I know all my credit cards, front and back, all my kids' social security numbers, all of the numbers. Like when people call once, I retain the number. I can spit it back out. I have a photographic memory, and it was
Just
very slow.
gone.
It was just not coming to me. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Like everything is bonkers. And I kept telling them, like, I'm not crazy. I swear I'm not crazy. There's something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't feel something, you are the CEO of your body. You run this business.
Right.
But you have to tell them how the business is ran and why it's not functioning properly. Help them help you, because sometimes the test doesn't dictate exactly how you're telling it, how you really feel. So you have to be extremely descriptive. So no matter what, the key things to look out for is something isn't right. Something is completely not right. And it could be so many reasons. I mean, sometimes I'll have days where I'm like, put it in there. Don't ever put it in Chat GPT or Google. Like, oh my God, I have typhoid fever. I'm going to die.
Yeah. That's a dangerous place to, to try to research things like that. And you kind of know right away, like what the websites are that look reputable. Like maybe I can take this information and process it and use it, or is it, just completely like bogus, like information that's, obviously not right. But yeah, I think that's really good that you're like the expert of your own body. And right away, you're like, well, I know these symptoms and I know what's going on. Like this is the experience. It can't be just flu or allergies, obviously. So yeah. And like I was thinking back on the adaptive sort of tools too that you were talking about with your grandma. You mentioned you were tying like some like two forks or something together with tape, like medical tape, like that. That is very much something that I'm familiar with, obviously figuring out adaptive tools. But that's really interesting. Like, did you find over the years that was kind of a skill that you had for other things besides like reaching to eat or anything? Like, yeah.
Everything. We had a constant stock of back scratchers. I mean, I can't say that to you because you know this, but for most people, imagine that you have an itch that you cannot scratch. How frustrating it is.
Yeah.
Because you literally can't reach back there.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to flip my grandmother over on her side because she could only go like this or like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And I would have to get the back scratcher for her. Or sometimes she'd have like itches in places I didn't want to touch, and I
That's
would have it
true.
for her.
Hmm.
So when I tell people, and it's very weird for them to know that I'm the type of person that has been in so many different scenarios, I completely understand. So when I meet people, I'm like, I've been there. I've been on each side. Even though I haven't been bedridden, I've had so many tests done that they tell me I can't get up to pee. Now, mentally, I'm like, I don't want to go on the bedpan. And
Hmm.
they're like, well, you can't walk to the bathroom. So you got to go. And I'm like, but I'm capable of going. So it's a whole mental thing. But I used to take the bedpan out for my grandmother all the time. I used to have to give her washes and stuff like that. So being adaptive and at least giving her something so that she could have some sort of independence. That's really
And
why
that's
we did it.
everything,
Like we could
right?
sit, yeah, so she
Yeah.
could feel like she wasn't depending on her 12-year-old granddaughter to feed her like a baby. And
Mhm.
I said, for me, I'm sitting here like, oh, my friends are asking me to go out, but I got to stay with my grandmother. And as an adult, I'm like, well, imagine how she felt. Imagine how
Right.
she felt. Like my grandmother has to, we made something so that, I hate to say this, you had to pick your nose. She couldn't pick her nose.
Right.
Okay. Or she couldn't put her dentures in. I'd have to do it. But I gave her like this little thing and I'm like, we're moving around, try to do it if you can't. Cause she'd be like, I don't want you to do it, but I need it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like even just a handful of those smallest, independent abilities are everything though. Like when you have
Mhm.
that, yeah. And I definitely relate with the itches you can't scratch. Just, move
Yeah,
it from back to whole body now. And then yeah. But that's really, something I haven't found many people really can understand fully,
exactly.
what that's like and what the design process you have to almost, be an engineer like from the start to make that thing
Mhm.
those things work.
I'd stand there and be like, okay, what can we do to give you something? We even bought I'm this old. So there was a thing called a mouse pad. It was on Nintendo. And
Hmm.
she knew that we loved to play video games. We would do things together. So she could play with us and do
Hmm.
something normal. We'd set the little thing down and she could at least do that. And we'd sit her up in she had a hospital bed. We'd prop
Hmm.
her up and she would just play mouse pad, swat the fly.
Hmm.
She loved it. Absolutely loved it. And that gave her like, you know what, I can do something that you guys do. And we would play
Exactly.
against each other, just thinking of things in
To
ways
do
that she can
together.
have a little bit of independence and doing things together. So, I mean, I understand. That's why I do volunteer with other kids. Like yesterday, I was cooking with I always cook with this one patient who has leukemia. He's 12 years old
Hmm.
and he shakes a lot. And I have to tell him, like, guess what? I shake a lot too, and just making other people feel better, because at the end of the day, every single person, regardless if you have a disability or not, everyone wants to feel like they're understood. And fortunately, I understand that. And I'm like, I hide it pretty well, but give me a cup and I'll be like this the whole time. I'd be a
Hmm.
horrible waitress. And
But that
include people.
exactly that sense of community, and like not feeling alone, I think is such a, I mean,
Mhm,
that's means so much, for people going through things, that are, I mean, I just can't imagine going through it alone, and not
mhm.
having people to go to. In fact, I'll definitely be picking your brain maybe here in the future about some tools, but yeah, like the mouse pad thing, that's such a great example, I think, because it's funny. I'm actually using, one of those flat track pads now
Yeah,
with my fingers, the way that the motion
it
is.
helps
And
keep her like this and like some
yeah,
function. So
well,
it
like
was a way
it's
of exercise too.
exactly. And it's like everything now with iPads and computers, like I type with it and everything now. So it's kind of cool to see over time,
Mhm.
how things have kind of progressed like that too with some of the technology even. I'd like to go a little bit into like the finding your role in advocacy and like as a speaker, and
Mhm.
like what that experience has been like for you.
So finding my role in advocacy, I started out really small. So I moved from New Jersey to California. It'll be 10 years now in
Mhm.
September. And before I moved here, I was doing like little things. I was a part of the Lupus Foundation of America, the tri-state chapter, which is New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. And I would just make sure to like just make a little speech, just starting out really small. But I took some classes while I was in college on public speaking because I really didn't talk as much when I was younger, probably because I was always told to be seen, not heard. So I had difficulty. Like now, you can't get me to like, okay, you need somebody to say it. I'll say it. I don't really care because I've been holding this back for so long, but it took a long time. So I took some classes and then got over my fear. And still steadily, I was like, okay, my hands are getting sweaty. Let's do this. So when I came here, it seems like California is a bunch of movers and shakers. On the East Coast, or at least where I'm from a very small town called Williamstown.
Mhm.
And we don't really do stuff like that. We really don't like make ourselves known. It's just very small town. Everybody knows everybody. If I went to my teacher was my mom's teacher, was my uncle's teacher, that kind of small town.
Right.
And so when I came here and I saw like this big world, I'm in Silicon Valley, and I said, okay, I'm going to learn from them. And I started going to Rotary clubs, speaking about lupus. Let me just speak some more about lupus. And everybody else kept tagging, oh, yeah, tell your story. When are you going to write a
Mhm.
book? So I read a book and then, okay, let's do this. And I just kept getting thrown into it because my experiences were like no other. A
Mhm.
lot of people don't have several people in their families that have lupus. It's usually like a one off. And then I find more people that do, and I have a little sense of community, then I just forge my way by saying, you know what, I'm going to start doing podcasts. I'll get on everybody's podcast. These are good exercises. These are good ways to raise awareness. Then I found out you can write to your local and state officials. Let's do a proclamation, and just engulfing myself like we have to make it known. I want people to know what lupus is. And that's when I came up with, you know what, I'm going to do Pretty Sick Lupus Chick. I need something where people just know who I am.
Mhm.
And because at first it was just Purple Ribbon All Stars, because I did a walk all the time. I would
Mhm.
fundraise for a walk and just starting out slow. And then I got into one particular group where they noticed how much I was doing and speaking, and they gave me a Patient of the Year award. And it was the right timing because in between that time, I wanted to go full force with it, but
Mhm.
I was getting really sick and I was waiting for a kidney. So once I had my kidney, and then this particular group, the Sequoia Project, asked me to speak on this consumer work group. And I was the only one in the group. It was like 12 people that kept giving all of this information that was helping them on how to improve things for patients. And they're like, well, would you want to speak here? And I said, yeah, we're going to pay you and everything. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I've been doing it and receiving like $100 here, there, whatever.
Mhm.
Wasn't a big deal to me. And they noticed me and they're like, you can do this all the time. And I said, okay, say less. 2 weeks later, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go here, 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 here. I'm good enough now, so I'm gonna go here, 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 here. And that's why I've been blowing up so much because everybody's like, you're everywhere. And I said, I'm gonna spread lupus awareness everywhere.
Right.
I might want my mom up there proud, like that's my girl.
Well, there's so many like facets and areas that you can get involved and spread the information, and
Mhm.
awareness, I feel like now. But like when you first started out, obviously it was probably more localized. You were going to in-person events and
Yeah.
things. What is social media like? What has that process been like just opening up? I mean, you've kind of got a global access,
Mhm.
perspective now. I feel like was that kind of how did you adapt and adjust to that, as it went along and progressed?
Um, it changed a little bit of things. It actually gave me more attention in a positive way. There were, of course, was some negative things. I have a regular job because I do IT, and
Mhm.
I never really let that go. And just recently, my husband, actually, right before my husband said it, over this past weekend, I went to a conference, and a lot of the people that know me kept saying, you're really good. Like I doubt myself, and as confident as I come off, I just doubt myself sometimes.
Mhm.
Where I'm like, I don't know if I'm good enough, and they're like, you know, you should be doing this full time, right? Not part time. And I said, I know. You say that to me, but he's like, I'm going to keep saying it until you do it.
Mhm.
And this was on what day before I left? Monday.
Mhm.
And I said, it's coming, it's coming. And then my husband said to me last night, he was like, it's your time. Because I had just booked something. And he was like, it's your time. And I'm like, okay, all right. When I went to the Lupus Foundation of America's, they have an annual summit for Lupus Awareness Month, which is May, and this was last year. And this is when I actually felt that the impact was made. I don't look at how many followers I have. I know I have a lot of followers. To me, it's
Mhm.
still like, it's not enough. It's not that big. I'm not
Right.
Selena Gomez, 1.2 million. And so I went there and I asked, no, when I first checked in, I didn't even get to the elevator to get to my room. This lady, I was standing there taking a picture, asking my husband to take a picture in front of the sign that said
Mhm.
the summit. And she peeks into my picture like this. Are you pretty sick lupus chick? And I was like, yes.
Well,
Can you
like
get it?
photo bombing,
Yeah, like,
basically.
yeah, as he's taking my picture, she's in the picture like this. And I'm like, in my head, like, can you get out of the picture?
Yeah, yeah. Just hold on a second. Let me get.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't, she's like, okay, well, can I take a picture with you? And I was like, I didn't even get a chance to drop off my bag. Sure. And she's like, okay, great. Before I could say sure, she's like, okay. And hops in the picture with me. And I'm just like, okay. And my husband's like, honey, you're going to get this a lot. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not. So then the next day, everybody is at the whole thing where everybody checks in. And I'd asked to take a picture again because I really wanted to take a picture in front of this new sign. And they were like, oh, we'll take your picture. And I said, yeah, can you take my picture? And what is your name? I'll tag you in the picture. And they were like, I follow you. And I said, huh? And she was like, I follow you. And then everybody in the group kept saying, I follow you too. I follow you too. And everybody was like scared to say something. And I said,
Mhm.
oh, okay. Hi. And I felt bad because I didn't know who they were.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
said,
And they
okay,
felt like
I'm
they knew
making,
you well, probably.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, I guess whatever. That's great. I hope I'm making impact. Oh yes, and when I do these podcasts and when people write in, that's what makes me happy because I'm not
Mhm.
doing this to profit. Like when people, I do get the negative attention. Oh, you're on this. Oh, I'd be happy too. And positive if I had your
Mhm.
life and all this money. And I'm like, I do work.
Yeah.
None of this stuff, and I'm not making money off of the advocacy, just so you know. I have a regular job in IT. I work from home. That's the only gift that I have is I work from home and I do IT, and IT pays well.
Mhm.
So plus my husband works, and it's like people want to down me and say, "Oh, well, that's why you're so happy is because you make so much money."
Mhm.
You want my bills too? Do you want
Right.
my
And
diagnosis and my bills?
exactly, exactly. And all these assumptions that come with those
Yeah.
things. Yeah. And I mean, I agree with you. I think, it doesn't matter the number of followers or like, I mean, you always have more reach and more, to share. And obviously there's still changes that need to happen that haven't yet. So I think that's such an important thing, to kind of keep pushing to get that out there, you know. But yeah, that's interesting to have followers come up and feel like they're like you're the best friend you are in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
but then you're like, hey, like, you still have, your life too and things you're doing.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I welcome it. I love it. It's just that I don't know how powerful social media can be until I'm out in the open because,
Mm,
I'm seeing you through here. It's
mm-hmm.
just you and I conversating. And then when I look on YouTube or anything else and I see the comments and people just making mention like I like how she said that and then that makes me feel good inside. And I don't
Yeah.
know who else because there's a lot of people that will just be they'll look but they won't say anything. I like, okay, half the time I said, I have all these followers. Why don't y'all like anything? But obviously you
Right.
watch me because when I see you in person, you tell me, oh yeah, I heard you talk about this. I'm like, well, why didn't you like it?
Yeah, yeah, like
Why didn't
that
you like
that
it?
passive following, scrolling type thing instead of
Yeah.
actually, yeah. No, I think that's something too. I've found that you quickly realize the people that are passionate and that really
Mhm.
support your advocacy because they get out and start sharing it as well and talking a little more about it. So I think that's huge. To be a little more vocal is something I struggle with. I kind of grew up thinking I'm not going to say anything or get involved. I'm going to pretend like I don't have symptoms, and try, which as strange as
Mhm.
that may sound, try to be that quote unquote normal kid, and then here in the last 10 years, it's like, well, no, that's actually not the right way to go about it because, you're not helping you and you're sure not helping anyone else that's maybe going through something similar or worse, so it's just like that voice and message is so critical, I think, just,
Mhm.
and it always will be in my mind too. Yeah. Um, but I would like to also know because it's so much a part of your everyday life with
Mhm.
the symptoms and talking to people and everything. It's like in your space all the time. Is there any way you look to kind of escape or get away, or do you ever feel like that's even something that you need? Like, is it is it different to
Yeah.
you in that way? Yeah.
Sometimes great question, because there's so many ways I can answer it, and I'll try to simplify it.
Mhm.
I had told someone recently, and it's sad, it's going to seem sad, that the only vacations that I've had were when I was in the hospital getting a procedure done. And
Mhm.
people were like, wait, what? And I see you vacation all the time. And I said, here's the thing. When I vacation, I don't leave my body that is riddled with all these autoimmune diseases behind. It comes with me. So I bring it with me. So I'm never really on vacation. When I'm on vacation is when I'm drugged out of my mind and I don't know what my name is. And I'm just sleeping because I can't really have really good sleep. I feel like Michael Jackson, who was addicted to propofol, and I can see why, because you can drown everything out on that stuff. It's anesthesia. And then the other part is my doing is I can't stop working all the time. And it's like a PTSD thing because of the way I saw my mom grow up and stuff like that. And she instilled in me to work from home. She was able to do that way back when and provide for us. And so I always want to be able to provide. And I sometimes have to like stop. I recently just took a vacation, and it was only because my boss was like, you can't work from Greece. It's like, I let you work from Mexico. You can't work from Greece.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, I can't. Okay, guys, I guess I'm actually going to have to take a vacation. Like, I didn't have to worry about checking my phone or doing a conference call, because all my kids know that when we go, like, you guys go play in the pool. I'm going to sit up here. Mommy's going to take a call, and then I'll be over there shortly.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I have to separate myself. So now I'm like, everybody keeps saying, do this full time. You can command your own schedule. And that's what I'm going to do, because life is too short. And, but it's still a sad thing for us people that have a lot of diseases or just any disease. A vacation doesn't really do it,
Right.
because all you're doing is putting me in a nice setting with the same body.
Right. Right. And then oftentimes, the things are even worse, obviously, with,
Mhm.
because there are stresses that come with traveling, obviously, that, when you have a disease or something like that, it adds layers of complexity to travel, I feel like. So even that's not really, quite an escape necessarily.
Mhm.
Yeah. But so what about like do you find like taking time to, I don't know, do hobbies get outside? Like are there little daily things that you like to bring into that kind of give you just that little, momentary break and everything that's going on?
It's good to take mini breaks. And for me, I like to draw. I don't draw
Hmm.
enough. I like to draw. I used to do that when I was in the hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I did two different types. Now, one, I could not take anything with me because it would disintegrate.
Hmm.
So the one was the tube that was basically like how Michael Jackson slept in it. It's like a long tube, and you lay flat, and you have to lay down basically with nothing on but a hospital gown, no earrings, no jewelry, nothing, for 3 hours. And you could just watch TV, which the TV would be above you outside of the chamber. Then
Hmm.
I did the other one where it's like in this tent, but you can bring something in. So I would just, for 3 hours, I couldn't have my phone. So I would just scribble,
Hmm.
write little characters, draw them up. I like drawing the Looney Tunes or any anime, and I just did that.
Hmm.
I like to get massages because, number one, it tries to relax me. Nothing can really make my brain shut off. But it would like help my body, and then I could just lay flat and not touch my devices.
Hmm. Hmm. I
Go
love that.
outside. I live in California in a
Hmm.
house that I don't have any grass.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I have to like walk to get grass. And I'm like, I don't feel like walking over there. I want my old house back where I can just go in the backyard and I had an acre of land and I could just walk outside.
Were you
Now you're
impacted by
asking me.
the fires going on too out there?
Where I live, there's always fires because we're near
Mm.
Napa. LA
Okay.
had the fires. So that's 6 hours away.
Hmm.
But when they had it, I was like, oh, well, we have it like every year
Yeah,
here. But
yeah. It's a
it's
constant.
different because there's a lot more to burn up over there.
Right, right. Yeah. But that's so great though that you found that sort of creative outlet with
Mhm.
drawing and things like that's, it just seems like that's so needed in my experience too, so I was just curious if that was, something that allowed you to just to do something kind of fun and maybe, you don't necessarily have to stress or worry too much about it. You're just kind of like free form enjoying
Mhm.
that part of it. Yeah, that's really good. Is that something that you kind of recommend for everybody to just kind of find things
Yeah.
like that?
Find something that you like to do. Like, even though I ask my husband all the time, like, what are your hobbies? He doesn't really have any outside hobbies. I like to sing, I like to
Hmm.
draw, I like to be very creative.
Hmm.
He likes to play video games. So when I see him on his phone and he's just drowning out playing like little legends, little minion things, I don't
Yeah.
know. I have no idea, but it makes him happy. Fine, go ahead and do that. Everybody needs to have some sort of outlet. And I used to knit when I was younger. And that was because the nurses, I'd pass the time away asking them 50 billion questions. And I think to shut me up, they would, hey, let's try knitting. We would knit
Yeah.
stuff. So I learned how to knit from doing that.
Yeah.
But it helps. Like, you can't just focus on the pain. And that's another thing I tell people: I don't sit still, because when I do, I feel all the pain. And I have to be productive, because I remember when my grandmother stopped moving, that's when she got confined to the bed. So I associate that with, you got to keep moving.
Right.
I don't want to be confined to the bed. And she would have given anything, when I travel so much, anything. We used to talk about all the places just to go one time. We couldn't take her everywhere because we'd have to take her hospital bed. And people take that for granted when they're like, I don't
Hmm.
want to go anywhere. I don't want to travel. And I'm like, you don't understand the way I lived, where my grandmother could only see outside of her window.
Right.
And you take for granted the ability that you can get up and go if you want to, but you choose not to.
Right.
That
Right.
is not a gift that's afforded to many.
It's definitely not. Definitely not. When you use a motorizer or something like that with adjustable
Mhm.
features, it's not like I have to take these big wedge pillows, and sometimes I sleep in my chair. Like, it's
Yeah.
just not. You really have to savor and enjoy those trips, and like I personally love to get on like the road trips and go see
Mhm.
things, and try new restaurants, that kind of thing. So it's you really, I think a lot of us that go through this cherish that, and people don't realize how rare it is even to get to travel a little bit either.
Just to have a
So
meal. Just
yeah,
that, but
yeah,
she didn't have, we never took her to a restaurant because no one could lift her all the time.
yeah.
And I don't know how I got the short end of the stick. I'm short, but she was 5'7".
Uh-huh.
And just imagine my little butt trying to pick her up. It would only be like one
Mhm.
of my uncles that came by, and they would bring her, and it was for like real special occasions. But we could never just say, hey, we're going to go to Texas Roadhouse, or
Right.
we're going to go
Just like
out to
load up
eat
and
and
go.
she's going to come
Yeah.
on. No,
Yeah.
that wasn't a thing. And that's why I completely understand where you're coming from. And even others, when I volunteered for the Autism Foundation,
Hmm.
we fundraise for respite care, which would be, the teachers would stay at night with the kids that they already teached, to allow the families to have a normal dinner, where they could
Hmm.
just go out, like the parents could go out by themselves and not have to worry about explaining why their child is not acting normal, and have behavioral issues and stuff like that, to give them a rest, and then also give the kids a chance to have fun with their peers at night
Hmm.
too. So it was like a win-win situation. So I understand where all these different aspects that people just take for granted. They're like, I don't want to go out. I don't want to do this. Oh my God, it's cold. And I'm like, you have no idea.
Right. Right. That's like not even the thing to worry about. So,
No.
and like you're letting that keep you from doing something when, just getting into a restaurant one time is just like, it's this huge planning procedure, and you have to account for all the supplies you may need. And I don't know, it's just a lot of planning
Yeah,
too.
backup
Yeah.
planning, or I can understand if money was a factor. Like, look, you could have all the
True.
things, but then you don't have any money. So it's, when I tell people I break bread with you, I truly value that, because that is something very special to
Mhm.
me. It's something that should be taken more seriously than just, I'm just going to meet you for coffee, whatever. No,
Right.
take
Right.
that
Yeah.
instance very, very special.
Well, and that thing with the caregiving too, when you mentioned money, like that's something that, I've been kind of realizing more and more too, is to get respite care, to get caregivers in the home that are even, like reliable. And I mean, you're paying off and out of pocket in my experience too. And it's just, it's such a challenge. Like, have you found, or do you know of like ways that seem to work better with finding care and options out there? Or is that just, is it so dependent on, your obviously your diagnosis and what your living situation
No,
is.
no. So back then it wasn't available that you could get paid to take care of your loved ones.
Mhm.
Now there's a lot of programs that are offered, and it's state specific. I know New Jersey is one of them, that they'll pay you to, like, hey, I just did my friend's laundry for them, and everybody can help out, and you could submit to get paid by the state to help these people out, because it is a financial burden, not just a physical, but a financial burden to help people, and also for those people that need the care. So there's a lot of programs out there that they don't advertise, but people should know that you should look into it. And whatever your state awards, there should be
Mhm.
something there for that. There are other programs such as through your insurance. If you have good insurance, sometimes they will allocate for a home health aide to come by.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know how much like that's done anymore through Medicare and Medicaid.
Right.
But it's always good to be resourceful and just ask. Don't ever feel like you're drowning in debt, because there are, and I know with this current administration, I'm not really sure, but
Right.
there should be, and it's supposed to be, things that are available to you to help in these instances.
Right, right. And yeah, I know it's so state specific and with, I mean, it's in a constant flux these days, so I know that it's nothing is certain and nothing is, like necessarily the same consistently, but that is
Mhm.
such great advice though, because I think a lot of people don't think that there's really anything out there. And if you just, you have to do a little bit of digging and pushing the edges a little bit to get it. But yeah, that's something you just have to fight for, it seems like these days.
Yeah, you have to fight for everything, but I didn't even
Everything.
know until I became a part of the National Minority Health Association that there was an association for minorities. And I was just like, what? We have our own division? Huh? Okay, cool. And there's so many programs out there. And the first thing that people say, well, they don't tell us about it. And I'm like, yeah, I know the system's rigged. It's not rigged to help us.
Right.
It's there. They're saying, hey, we're there, but they don't tell you about it. So you have to take the step. It's almost taking your care into consideration. You
Mhm.
can't just have diarrhea of the mouth and tell the doctor, "Oh my God, this is happening," blah 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 blah, blah, and then be like, "Help me."
Yeah.
Okay, well, he's there. These programs are there. You have to do a little research. Unfortunately, start charting your symptoms. What
Mhm.
day? What did you eat? What did you do? And give it to them so that they can help you. Help them help you. Help them help you.
Right,
And the
right.
same thing with these programs. Just Google it. These days, like I had to go to the library. You do not have to go to the library anymore.
That's
You
true.
have everything at your fingertips. Say to Google, find all government programs to help me to assist
Mhm.
my son, daughter, brother, whatever. And it'll pop up
Just
specific for
lists.
California, for Iowa. And there you're done. And I don't have to
Right,
do anymore. And when I tell people that, they're like, well, can you help me? And I'm like, all I'm going to do is what I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. And I'm not
right.
doing anything special. Just do it.
Right, right. Yeah, and hopefully people don't forget about the libraries too. I mean, I remember that was like you had to go find a book that was,
Yeah.
the only information source you felt like you could get. So yeah, I mean, it's the tools and resources available now are just so much more than they used to be. Um,
Mhm.
but but yeah, that's so good. And I don't want to take too much of your time, Shamekka, but I did want to ask too, like, what is the best way for people to get involved with, with spreading advocacy, with being advocates, in the disability space, especially with the areas that you're involved with now.
It's very easy to start in any capacity. I have a lot of friends that don't want to be in the spotlight. They want to help in the background. So for
Mhm.
instance, I had a friend that she'll help out anytime we need a booth. She'll be there present when we have just like a walk or a booth. She doesn't want to have to talk. But she still has to talk when she mans the booth. She just doesn't want to have to be
Right.
made to talk and do a speech. She'll just, if somebody asks a question, yes, well, we have these resources. This is what I experienced, blah, blah, blah. Very minimal. Even if you want to take it a step back, just posting about it. Post about it on your social media. You don't have to tell about your specific journey if you
Right.
don't want to
Right.
get too many intimate details, but just talking about like, here are facts about lupus, Sjogren's syndrome, vasculitis, whatever. I have 13, so I can pull whatever what I'll just say rare
Mhm, mhm.
disease as a whole, and giving some facts, help educate people, start like a support group. You can start as big or as small as you want to,
Right.
especially with having an online forum. You can just pop up and just do walks. Find your local foundation that supports the illness that you're a part of or any illness that you feel passionate about, and do a walk, and you'll just blend in with the crowd, and you are fundraising essentially for that passion. And that's your way to contribute to advocacy and awareness, because
Right.
everybody's going to know, like, why am I giving this money? Well, you're giving this money for juvenile diabetes, and
Hmm.
my son has it, and blah, 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 blah. That's the way to stay out of the background. But then you could also take it up a notch. You could start writing to your state and local representatives. Hey, I want to schedule a meeting with you. A lot of people don't know that these people work for you, and you can schedule a meeting with them to talk about flowers that grow. But it's really that easy. And you can let them know, like, this is the reason why we need you to vote for this, because this affects me this way, blah, 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 blah. That's how easy you can get into just government stuff. Look online. When is the next summit that's coming up for your specific disease? Attend that, attend webinars, get more information that way, and talk to those people and let them know, like, hey, this is a great webinar, but did you know that this happens to me? And they can start looking into it. So you can, like I said, just start small. You don't have to jump completely in a pool,
Right.
and do it at your own comfort level. But
Hmm.
there's so many different options you can contribute and spread awareness. You don't have to be out there like me.
Right, right. Well, that's one of the things I love about it too, right? Is it doesn't take, like there's different levels, different forms of advocacy and being active in that space, that fits the person, and what their situation is. So I'm like, it's really cool to me now that there's so many options to do that. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, my last question is like, what do you have coming up? I know, you're saying that you're getting a little bit more involved with, making this maybe your next career path
Mhm.
and your work. So like what's coming up that you're really kind of looking forward to, as you're moving ahead?
Hmm. Well, I leave tonight. I'm gonna be gone. I was just appointed to the Disease Advisory Council for Genentech, and Genentech, if people don't know, is a huge
Mhm.
pharmaceutical company. I was actually just approached by GSK yesterday to do a social media campaign. I always have something coming up. I just came from a conference called Vive. That's a health conference, but I'm going tomorrow to two foundation galas. So if you're on the East Coast, you'll catch me over there. One is for the NBA Philadelphia 76ers Youth Gala.
Nice.
And the other one, I'm on the board for the Hip Hop and Hope Foundation, and that's in honor of awareness for multiple myeloma that affects a lot of Black men. It's a cancer that affects a lot of Black men.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'm going to be speaking at a wellness retreat in the Virgin Islands right after that. I have a lot of speaking engagements coming up, and then I'll be right back in Philly at the convention center, and then the convention center in San Diego. So if you follow me on social media, which is at Pretty Sick Lupus Chick, or on LinkedIn, Shamekka Marty, or on my website, shamekkamarty.com, even if you do not have any social media, I have it linked. So you'll see all the things that I do on there as well.
Okay.
But I always have something coming up. So right now, my career path is consulting and speaking, and a little bit of sports management and IT management.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I'm taking this 100% full force, where I'll just be doing a lot of speaking engagements, and hopefully, I would say I would be the next Oprah, but I'm myself. I am
Right,
going to
right.
be Shamekka.
Exactly, exactly. Well, that sounds like a lot of really exciting things going on. I'll definitely be following along too, and I'll definitely share with listeners too. And yeah, it's been really great talking to you. I appreciate everything, and I definitely would like to visit more in the future at some point.